Scott Mantz. I've seen this movie 4 times, and yeah, believe me, it gets even better and better every time you see it. Please welcome the writer and producer of I, Tonya, Stephen Rogers. Please welcome the director of I, Tonya, Craig Gillespie. Please give a rousing round of applause for Margot Robbie.
Guys, we're in the Dome.
And the Dome is sold out.
This is great. I mean, the last movie I saw it here was Stanley Kubrick's 2001: Space Odyssey. So this is like
Mine was that old.
I'm looking good for my age. Can we, since this is maybe like one of the highlights of my career so far, to be in the Dome with this many people, can we do a selfie just quickly with everyone? I'm going to try and get everyone in it and us in it, if possible. Feel free to hold up your no comment cards if you want, or don't, whatever you want. Okay, Craig's going to do one too. I think we're all in it. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, that was great. Let's not find this one. Stanley Kubrick did not do that.
He's so cool.
So, okay, well, why was really now the right time for this story? And in some ways, in a lot of ways, really, that whole thing that happened almost 20 years ago sort of changed the face of the 24-hour cable news cycle. Let's start with you, Stevie.
Well, I think it's the right time because it's a lot about class in America and the disenfranchised, and also what we tell women they're supposed to be, and it's about truth and the perception of truth. I mean, when I wrote it, it was before Trump, so it's sort of a coincidence, but certainly those are themes that I was interested in when I was thinking of doing it.
And this is also what inspired you to sort of go after this, especially once you started getting different versions of the story from the people that you really made the movie about?
I wasn't looking to do it at all. I had just done a Christmas movie, and I knew I wanted to write something that was totally different than that. And I saw this great documentary on 30 for 30 about Tonya Harding, and I just thought, well, nothing doesn't say Christmas like Tonya Harding. So I went on the Tonya Harding website to see if the life rights were even available, and I looked up the number for her agent and called it, and it was a Motel 6. And I just thought, I am so in. And I tracked down Tonya Harding, and I tracked down Jeff Gillespie, and I just wore them down, and they agreed to let me interview them, and when I did, their stories were just so wildly contradictory. They didn't remember anything the same. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Oh, there you are. There's so many of you. But I thought that was my way into the story. I'll just put all the different points of view up there and then let the audience decide.
Well, Craig, this movie does juggle a lot. It's not your typical biopic. It's not like the most straightforward story. It jumps around, and it really does sort of strike a tone for being Rashomon on ice. I mean, that's the way I see it. So how challenging was it to sort of maintain that tone from start to finish?
I mean, I read Stephen's script, obviously, and it was just the most wild ride. I hadn't read anything like it, and I kept trying to find examples. I mean, the highs and the lows, the tragedy, the violence, the humor, the absurdity. But I loved that tone, and I was so up for that challenge. And then having Margot was already attached when I read it, which I was thrilled about. It's this dance that Margot can do between drama and comedy is so tricky and so hard. I really feel like it's in your DNA. And she has it, and be able to do that and not lose the character and not have a joke at the expense of the character. She's always invested. And then we had Allison Janney was already attached as well. So that was a huge part of it. Then trying to find Jeff Gillespie was a lot harder. It took us about 3 months of a lot of casting to really figure out that dynamic so that these guys would have this incredibly dysfunctional love story at the base of this, and dealing with the violence in that. It was a very that was the most stressful part of it, and how to really be honest about it, because it's something that I didn't want to shy away from, because Tonya lived through this, and it informed us on who she was as a person and how she saw the world. And it just was a lot of the way that, you know, she engaged with the public, and you see that defensiveness and that defiance, and I think it's all there from this upbringing, so I really wanted to show it.
Now, Margot, how much of the Tonya Harding story did you know when this sort of came your way?
None of it.
How is that possible?
I was 4 years old at the time in Australia, and I missed the scandal completely, and I didn't know that much about the figure skating world either. I'm from like a coastal town where, like, you know, we watch surfing on TV, not the ice skating sort of thing. So I totally missed it. When I read the script, I thought it was fiction. I thought, wow, this is so bizarre and oddly specific. And but I fell in love. Like it just. The script felt so rebellious, it didn't follow any of the formulaic sort of structures that a script normally follows. And I read thousands of scripts, both for acting and producing. I'm always reading scripts, and I, you know, in a lot of cases, I know where it's heading, and I can figure, okay, this is the second act low point, and this, you know, whatever. I can see all that coming. And in this script, I was like, what is going on? Like, what?
Totally.
But it sucked me in. Stephen's so clever about, you know, I got caught up in the whirlwind of it all, and then by the end, I didn't even realize that I'd fallen in love and really emotionally invested in these characters, and I thought it was so clever, and it was just so cleverly put together. It was so brilliantly written. So the character herself, of course, I was keen to play immediately. She seemed so misunderstood and complicated, and, you know, all the things that kind of scare me and excite me about a character. And then I realized it was all true stuff. Like, I went online to look up something, and I was like, wait, this whole thing's true. I mean,
wow.
So true to the point, like, specific details in the script. I mean, almost everything you see in the movie happened, depending on who you're talking to. But it's all the specific details that Stephen captured will actually happen in real life. Is just so often crazier than what we see in the movies.
So it struck you, it got you to the point where not only was playing Tonya Harding a dream role for an actor, but you also wanted to produce this movie. Mm-hmm. So what exactly did that entail?
Producing it, I mean, with a script like this, it just never would have survived the studio system. Some scripts thrive in the studio system. I've been a part of some, and I know for a fact that that's where their home belongs. But in this script, if you try and please everyone, it ends up going through this, you end up polishing all the hard edges, and it turns into this shiny, careful thing, and it's just, that doesn't suit this story at all. Like, Tonya is rough around the edges. She's got sharp edges, as does Lavana and Sean and Jeff and all these characters. I mean, they really, so in the end, we took a lot less money so that we could maintain creative control. And, you know, the logistics, obviously, of producing a film, we sell foreign pre-sales and all that kind of stuff, and figure out where to shoot, where that offers the best tax incentive. So we shot in Atlanta, which replicated Poland really well, actually. And we spent a lot of time in ice skating rinks. They have great ice skating rinks, and casting, obviously, was a huge aspect, as Craig explained. And really, what really mattered was having the core creative team who saw the film in the same way, and we did. From the second we all sat down together, we saw it the same way, and that is in large part due to the fact that Stephen wrote such a specific, incredible script. So it was fortunate, and every step of the way, we didn't have to answer to a higher person who wasn't on set. You know, we were the team. If there was a decision, it was us who got to make it.
All right, so the first thing that really struck me while I was watching the film in Toronto, the Toronto Film Festival, was this. It does not treat Tonya like a punchline. It doesn't treat her like a punching bag, because, you know, I was a little bit older than 4 when that went down. I remember it. It doesn't matter how old I was. But the press did sort of treat her that way, and this film didn't. Like, you empathize with her, and you feel bad for her. So, like, how important was it for you to get that?
It's funny, when I read the script, I inherently felt that throughout the film, and I loved the opportunity on just a sort of a more general level that we know this woman as a villain in our society. She's like the poster child, and she's a punchline that we've had for 25 years. And on top of just being able to look at her and be able to look at her as a human being and understand all the nuances and the abuse that she went through to inform of all her choices, I thought it was also an opportunity in a bit of a strong way to hold a mirror up to ourselves, because we are so judgmental, not just condemning the media, but what we consume with the media. I thought it was really interesting that they were the beginning of this, the 24-hour news cycle. We got fed all this information, and we take it, and we just assume it, and we don't investigate it. And since then, it's kind of spiraled out of control, and we churn through like stories in people's lives like with complete disregard. And I thought it would just be interesting to take a beat and actually take one of these moments and look at them as a human being and what they were going through and how much more complex it was.
You know, Margot, your first meeting with Tonya, how did that go?
Craig and I flew to Portland. Tonya still lives in Portland, and Jeff still lives in Portland, actually, very close to each other.
They haven't seen each other since this happened.
Yeah. So we flew to Portland a week before we started shooting and met her, but by that point I'd done all my research and I'd studied her from afar because I could. There was so much footage online from 15 throughout her 20s into her 40s. There was documentaries, interviews, obviously skate competitions, but I really could study her physicality and her dialect and her mannerisms and her story from afar, which was ideal to be able to do that without meeting her. I really wanted to create the character separate from knowing her as a person, so I didn't want to muddy the waters there, and in that way I felt like I wouldn't need to hold back on set. I wouldn't want to be trying to skirt over the bad stuff. It's like, we need to see this character, we need to see the story and all, the beautiful side and the ugly side. And I felt I would have felt more obligated to tell the good stuff, put on the good face if I had spent a lot of time with her. So I kept the character and her separate in my mind. And when we did meet her, it just was to meet her as a person and to say like, hey, I'm playing a character, and you as a person and this character are very different to me, and I hope you understand that one day when you see this film. So I didn't see her again. She wasn't a consultant on set. She didn't come to set. She didn't get a say in what was in the film, what scenes were in it, anything like that. I didn't see her again until just the other night at the premiere.
Oh, what did you think of the movie? Talk about a review.
Yeah, I was so scared. I was scared to see it. It was weird to watch it in the room, knowing that she was also in the room. But I think, yeah, she found it to be a very emotional experience, and she said she laughed and she cried, and there's obviously bits she doesn't agree with, primarily the bits told from Jeff's point of view, because they don't agree on much. But yeah, she overall, I think was grateful that her side of the story had been told, and she was understanding that we weren't saying, look, we're not trying to paint you as this, like you're perfect. But nor do we feel like we should, we felt we should show people something more than just you as a villain, because that's what everyone kind of saw. We just wanted to show her as a person, really, and I think she understood that and was grateful.
All right, Stephen, I have 2 words for you. Allison Janney. Go. Let's go.
I wrote the part for Allison.
Wow.
I've known her forever. We went to acting school together at the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York. So I've always known how great she was, and I was frustrated, first of all, that she never got to play anything that I wrote for her, but also that she never really had the opportunity in movies to play something that was so dark and deep and delicious, and any other word that starts with a D. So I wrote it for her, and it was a spec script, which means that I didn't take any money. But when it went out, if people wanted to bid on it, then I had a little bit of power. And the first thing that I said, because there was heat on the script, was Allison Janney is playing the part that I wrote for her, and I wanted it in writing, or as a deal breaker. And I said it before Allison had actually even read the script or succeeded to the part. But I mean, it was so worth it after all these years, and to watch her get all this acclaim for it now is really moving.
Okay, so here's some interesting stats. The script was around 110 pages long. There are 270 scenes. In those 270 scenes on 110 pages. Wait. For Margot, you've had, 110 costume changes. I mean, come on. Okay, wait, hang on. 200 special effects shots, all in a 31-day shoot. How the hell did you do this? Craig, that's your question.
I was up for the challenge because I love this script so much, and I get greedy, and there was a lot of naysayers, including the Bond company, that was like, you can't do this,
And line producers who were like, it's impossible, it can't be done.
I had an amazing crew, and if any one of them didn't work out, like my DP, this Belgian guy, Nicholas Katanas, who I had never worked with before. So that was a roll of the dice. And Jade Healy, our production designer, and Jennifer Johnson, who did wardrobe, and doing 110 wardrobe changes just for Margot. Forget 2 Olympics and 3, like all those wardrobes in the period. And my AD was unflappable, like Kim Winters, who's done like Edge of Tomorrow and Braveheart. He's done huge movies, but he loved how scrappy this was. But I just, if the actors couldn't deliver, it would never have happened. And the amazing thing, like Margot, first of all, the prep that she did for this movie was 6 months. 6 months of skating, 5 months of skating, but just like 5 days a week training, and then having to learn all the body language and the dialect with Tonya's accents and the different ages and all of that prep. But then she could sit on the set, and I knew I'd get it in 3 takes. And if I didn't have that luxury to know how talented she was, and Allison and Sebastian, if they could step in and we could improvise and run and gun and shoot it, and she would stay on the set and change in the corner and throw a different wig on and be back in 15 minutes and shoot the next one. And, I mean, it was crazy, but it was really fun.
So Margot, you said like, what, 6 months? And so all the training, especially the ice skating training that you did, like any injuries?
Lots of bumps and bruises, and a herniated disc in my neck, that was painful. But yeah, no, it was totally worth it. If I got a herniated disc and then no one wanted to see this movie, it kind of would have sucked. But to like sit here in the dome and see that you guys all left your houses today to see our film, it's like, I'll take 2 herniated discs, whatever.
Yeah. But you also, so talk about transformation. You have the wardrobe, you have the hair, you have the makeup, and prosthetics. So take us through that transformation, because it's quite a bit.
Yeah, so we had obviously the 3 different stages. Tonya at 15 with the braces and the short hair, which is what she looked like at that time. And that was, I mean, I had braces at that age, and I remember how painfully self-conscious I was of them. Like every time I smiled, I'd realize that I was showing my braces and immediately cover them up. And things like that just make me feel like a kid again. And all through our 20s, of course, we had the longer hair, we had amazing skate costumes, which our wardrobe department painstakingly replicated, like sequin for sequin. If you feel like falling down a YouTube rabbit hole, go look at Tonya's like skate costumes compared to the film, because they did such a good job. And obviously the prosthetics in the old age, we needed to do aging prosthetics and weight gain, and that obviously takes 3-4 hours in the morning or whatever. But yeah, it was wild. We would jump around. Some days it was like going from 15 to 40 back to 22, and it was wild, but that was this job. It was like we'd be on the ice and Craig would yell cut, and before I've even like finished spinning, Craig's picked up the monitor and is running across the ice rink, and I'm like, wait, are we moving on? He's like, quick, to the change room, get the next scene. I'm like, got it, skating. The crew's like running, picking up stuff as they go, and like trying to get the next shot, the next scene. It was, the whole thing it really embodied the spirit of Tonya and these characters. They were scrappy, they were rough around the edges, and that's how we made it. And I think if we had all the time and money in the world, I don't think we would have made a good film.
Can I say one thing also? That scene, the scene where she's looking in the mirror, Tonya or Margot, and she's putting the makeup on and lipsticks on the teeth, everything, 1 take.
Wow. How did you film the triple axel?
Oh, I did the triple.
That's actually she's the only one who can do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were only 6 people in the world who could do that.
Yeah, we didn't really appreciate what an incredible athletic achievement that really was until it came time to shooting it and figuring out how to shoot it. And we said to our skate choreographer, Sarah Kawahara, like, okay, so we'll just need someone who can obviously double me, but can do the triple axel. And she was like, what? And we're like, someone who can do this? And she was like, no one can do the triple axel. And we're like, well, that was 25 years ago, and sports progressed over the years, records have broken all the time. She's like, 6 women have done it since Tonya did it 25 years ago. And 2 of them are in the country, and both of them are Asian, and they can't double it. And I was like, huh. So we're back to the drawing board on that one, and Craig fortunately figured it out with CGI, and fortunately has worked a lot in the commercial space and has close relationships with VFX houses and things like that. So
8FX, who had done a lot of commercials with, stepped up and there you go, did this.
Yeah.
It was originally going to be like 70 shots and it ended up being 200. And they delivered because we had no time.
And I mean, we're on the ice, just holding up a blue sheet sort of thing, and just being like, okay, Margot, look that way. We got enough to make it work with CGI, and I was like, surely not. I mean, when I did Suicide Squad, it was full body scans, like with like 6 million cameras around me, and I had to stand still for 45 minutes while they, replicate every bit of your body. I was like, wait, surely you can't make this work. And he was like, I got it. Which is fortunate because we didn't have any more time, so we had to.
Well, I want to open up to the audience, but before I do, I wanted to say, like, the reviews for the movie have been outstanding. Okay, so Vanity Fair says, a risky, tragic comedy that succeeds. Variety calls it fresh, chancy, wickedly enjoyable. And one national film critic, very respected, beloved film critic, said, it's magnificent, one of the year's very best movies. Margot Robbie is phenomenal. Do you know what national respected film critic said that?
I have an idea.
I did!
Really?
Yes, I did. Okay, so who's got questions? Okay, you in the back, as you're the first to raise your hand. Yes, you. Nice and loud.
We had this debate on set, and I think Sebastian's response was, well, you're standing on my left right now. So, and I mean, obviously, I think Harley would win, for sure. For sure. Don't you think Harley would win? We have a Harley down here right now.
We have a Harley. Okay, who else has questions? Yes, here we go. Yes, you, right there. Nice and loud. Yeah, you. Yeah, you.
I hadn't skated growing up, like I think a lot of people in America and Canada and stuff obviously skate a lot growing up. I hadn't done that because there was no ice where I was from. But I loved the Mighty Ducks so much when I was a kid. So it was my dream to be an ice hockey player. So I'd wear my rollerblades and have a field hockey stick and run around all the time. And when I moved to America when I was 20, I joined an ice hockey team here in LA and played amateur ice hockey for like half a season until I was under contract again, because you can't do anything like that when you're under contract for a TV show or whatever. So yeah, that was the extent of my ice skating knowledge, and I thought, oh great, like I can pretty much ice skate. Like I played ice hockey, and then I put on figure skating skates. Anyone here figure skate, by the way? Yeah, so you guys know that the toe pick is kind of a crucial difference between ice hockey skates and figure skating skates, and obviously you have no padding as well when you're doing figure skating. So it was a rude awakening, and I thought I was going to be much better than I was, but really it was like going back to basics and having to start all over again. It's a brutal sport. Like it is so tough. I was astounded.
Wow.
I love you!
Yes, you, right there.
How hard is it to switch your accent up?
Switching your accent. Yeah, how hard is it?
I have to work on an accent for a really, really long time. I'm not one of those people that just has a musical ear and can replicate accents, just off the cuff. I have to really work on it for months and months and months with a dialect coach. And then once I've done all that work, then it's really easy to switch in and out of it. So a lot of actors on set will stay in the accent from the start of the job to the end, or from the start of the workday to the end of the workday, but I only do it from action and cut. So in between takes, I'm back in my Australian accent, and then, when they call action, then I'm back to being whatever accent I'm
Which is
doing.
kind of bizarre.
Says you with the weirdest accent ever. Craig's actually Australian, but he's lived here for so long, he's got this weird amalgamation of Australian and American. So, yeah.
Australian and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right there in the West.
So with Craig, you seem to do a lot of sports movies. Is there a reason why?
Why do you like to do sports movies, Craig?
There's no reason that I'm looking to do sports movies. It was actually a reason when I heard about this, my agent called me and said, hey, I've got this movie, I'm going to send you the script about Tonya Harding, and I immediately was like, I don't need to do a sports movie. And then he finished it by saying, starring Margot Robbie, and I was like, wow, that's such an unusual combination, it's fascinating. So it was that, and then I read, Steven's script, and it was the script in Margot. They could have been like playing chess.
How do you think the incident would have played out today with social media, with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff? Do you still think that the media would have depicted her the way it did 20 years ago, or do you think it would have been different because of all the internet and all that stuff?
I feel like I still see the media pin women against each other a lot. Not just the media, I mean, I see it in scripts, I see it everywhere. I feel like that element may have remained the same. I feel like the class divide in this country right now is incredibly prevalent. So maybe they would have taken that tact again, but I think what social media has done this day is give a voice in these days is give a voice to people who back then, like we were really receiving information just from a few specific sources, and now everyone can have a voice and state their opinion. And I think there were some like Team Tonya people out there. I've met people who are like, I was on Tonya's side. Those people would have had a louder voice. I think, I don't know, but there is still this insatiable appetite for scandal. I feel like we eat it up even more these days, and we definitely cycle through it quicker too. We eat it up and spit it out a lot quicker, I think. So maybe it would have been much the same. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
What she said.
Well, a movie like this, word of mouth is key. And how do you spread word of mouth? I mean, social media. So make sure you go on Twitter, you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram. You're in the back if you're still using MySpace. Whatever floats your boat. Please stay seated while we exit. We have to run to another Q&A, but thank you so much. And please spread the word about Tonya, Stephen, Craig, Margot Robbie.